Is driving for Uber Eats a good job? Well, in this video, I'm going to interview my brother Matt, who's completed over 500 deliveries on the Uber Eats platform, and we're going to answer that very question. Firstly, welcome to the channel. My name is Mike. This channel is dedicated to your success in this gig economy, the side hustle. So if you are new here, consider subscribing. And for the very best tips, tricks, and strategies to master any food delivery app, visit yourdrivermike.com/delivery. So firstly, thanks for taking some time to do a quick interview here. We're coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I guess my first question, because maybe you're thinking about signing up for apps like Uber Eats, and maybe this is the number one app you want to start with. So speaking of starting, why did you consider starting with Uber Eats? I know you did it in the past, actually, you just picked it up again. So why did you start driving? Why Uber Eats?
Right. So what are some of the benefits of driving? What are some of the incentives? So if you are a person that has some free time, and what this means is even an hour occasionally, if you're someone who has goals, maybe you're saving or you're wanting to save for a down payment or whatever it happens to be, if you have that drive, if you have that motivation to get out there for whatever your personal reason is, Uber, DoorDash, these side hustles are an amazing, flexible way to just get it done.
And pretty good ease of use, because honestly, when you pass a background check, you run your vehicle through, you could be earning money in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's very simple. So if you think about a traditional side hustle, if you will, with applications and interviews and things like that, very, very easy to get on the road and very easy to maximize your money through some of the tips that we talk about on this channel and to reach your goals very quickly.
Well, I appreciate you adding that. Now, I want to ask you, because I think the number one question that you and I would be thinking about right now is pay. And specifically, we'll get into standard pay, but I want to talk about bonuses and pay incentives. So talk to me, because I primarily drive on DoorDash. So I want to talk specifically to Uber Eats. So what bonuses are offered on Uber Eats? Are there multiple bonuses? Talk to us a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, there's definitely a strategy, but to break it down real simply, so on top of the base pay, so when you're typically driving, you get a payment for your service, and then on top of that will be surge pay when we're talking about Uber Eats. So DoorDash has a different incentive, but this surge pricing with Uber is a multiplier on top of that base pay. So it could be 1.7 times the base pay or 1.5 times the base pay. And then there's incentive that are called quests. So they give you cash for driving maybe a certain number of deliveries. So there's multiple different ways to really maximize your income, and we haven't even broken down other ways like tips and things like that.
And that quest bonus, that's truly extra pay. So you said you complete a certain amount of deliveries, and that's what, an extra, whatever it is, $8, $10, right?
Yeah, so think about if you have enough time to do 10 orders or 20 orders, and that's your goal, which is great. Just by driving what you typically would drive, if there is a promotion going on, you'll just automatically get an added level of income, an added bonus through this quest pay with Uber Eats.
So two different types of bonuses: the boost pay, which is surge, it's a boost pay, which is an earnings multiplier, and then the quest bonuses, the kind of batch deliveries, complete a certain amount of deliveries, and then you get the extra pay. So speaking of pay, because that's the big thing maybe when you're making a decision of what app to drive for. Like I mentioned, I drive primarily for DoorDash in San Diego, California. I completed almost 1,500 deliveries on that platform. So I know you've driven DoorDash as well. You've driven it here in Pittsburgh. In fact, when we're out there, we're driving both platforms. Talk to me about just the standard pay on Uber Eats, pay in general, maybe Uber Eats versus DoorDash, just a little bit more about pay.
So when we're looking at the pay, whether it's Uber Eats or DoorDash, the amount you're actually getting for your time on the road is fairly similar. The big thing that changes from application to application is the amount you're getting paid for that specific order. So let me give you an example. If you are toggling between or considering on Uber Eats or DoorDash, well, you clearly want to take the order that would be more money, because then that's more money for you. So really the change is how much are you getting paid for the order, and that could vary greatly from app to app, just depending on who's ordering on what app.
So we can say maybe one order on Uber Eats, like you're mentioning. Well, let's say DoorDash first. So a DoorDash order, let's say it's like $6 for, I don't know, whatever it is, 3 miles. And it's good to drive on Uber Eats and have that comparison, because maybe that, whatever I said, 3 miles or whatever it is, maybe it's paying double, or maybe it's paying, 1.5, maybe because of that boost pay that you mentioned there. So I think it's very important to drive for really as many apps as you can. So it sounds like the pay is pretty fair, comparing at least DoorDash to Uber Eats. So if you're considering, let's say, signing up for Uber Eats, you should probably go for it, at least to try it out. Well, let me ask you, getting into your experience driving, why Uber Eats? Because in fact, you actually drove some time ago for Uber Eats and you picked it up again. So why Uber Eats? How has the experience been driving, let's say, versus other apps, let's say?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So let's say you're really comfortable with DoorDash or Uber Eats, whatever it happens to be. Well, like I mentioned previously, it's really about choices. So if you have more choices, you're going to really have more choices for that higher dollar amount delivery. So it just makes sense that, and don't get us wrong, it's both applications are very easy to pick up and start with. They're very user friendly and easy as a driver. So I picked up Uber Eats because I simply liked the demand. I really enjoyed how many requests I was getting, and it's all about choices. So I have no specific application I use more often. I'm using which application is going to have those higher requests on that given day.
So the pay sounds pretty decent, right? At least comparing, Uber Eats versus everyone else. The bonuses sound decent. You mentioned 2 different ways to earn more money. Let's talk about tips, because that's another fact. Actually, it's quite different than DoorDash. We're kind of comparing the two here. So with the DoorDash, most of those customers are tipping ahead of time whenever they're placing the order. That varies really greatly when you compare with Uber Eats. It's kind of the inverse. Most every customer on Uber Eats is tipping after the fact, after you complete that delivery. So in essence, your customer service is even more important on Uber. So talk to me a little bit about your tips, how many tips you get, the frequency, the average tips. Just talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? Because when you are waiting for that order to be done as a driver, your service is a large factor on those tips. Whereas, like Mike said, on DoorDash, it's typically before the delivery is finished. So on average, I would say, in my experience, I get a tip 9 out of 10 times. Some deliveries, they may not have a tip on them, but that's very rare in my experience. On average, it's going to be, and I think we crunched the numbers before, maybe $4, $5. But here's the real game changer. Whenever I put a little fun fact about myself, so for me, I started picking up ride share and specifically deliveries here because I was saving for an engagement ring at the time. And that little fun fact about you in that About Me section, people actually read.
Your profile. This is the profile hack.
So people, exactly. So people, they really enjoy just simply relating to maybe a goal that you have. So let's say your goal is to save for your first car or your first home or whatever it happens to be. People do read those bios. And I actually have seen some of the largest tips I've ever seen, and sometimes multiple large tips in 1 week of $15, even $20, and people would leave a really nice tip. So it's not always, but it's pretty neat to see.
And this is unique to Uber Eats because you can't do this on DoorDash. There's no readable driver profile in transit on DoorDash. So this is something you should absolutely take advantage of. This is what we're calling the profile hack. And like Matt mentioned, in his profile, he simply put, hey, I'm saving for an engagement ring. And in fact, there's kind of proof in the pudding here. We had a customer that specifically mentioned that profile note in there. We were completing the delivery and the customer said, hey, congrats on the upcoming engagement.
Yeah, that was pretty cool because it really makes it more like relatable, as if they get to know you a little bit. And he said, hey, congratulations on the engagement, which I kind of picked my head up, and I really appreciated that. So again, just a little fun fact. It's pretty cool to see.
So we've covered pay, we've covered tips a bit. Now, one thing you may be wondering if you're considering signing up for Uber Eats as well, how safe is it? How easy is it? Am I going to get the hang of it? So talk to us a little bit about how, in general, how has driving been, especially in a hilly, windy, pretty congested city like Pittsburgh. And actually, I think a lot of you can relate to this. Let me know down below in the comments, is your market, a small market, a medium-sized market? Because I would say Pittsburgh is a pretty, it's a medium-ish sized market. I'm usually coming to you from San Diego. That's certainly a large market. So talk to us about driving in that medium, let's say, market of Pittsburgh, driving for Uber Eats.
Right. So think about this. So if you're considering getting started, you're probably fairly established in your town or your city already. So all you're doing is adding on this service of delivery. So you will typically know, and even if you're not familiar with your city, we give you tips like driving near hotels and colleges because that's where the restaurants and entertainment are going to be. But it's a very safe platform, and all I can do is give you examples from what we've driven over probably 2,000 rides in delivery form between us, and I've never had an instance where there's been an issue.
And the app's been easy. The app crashes. How's the app itself as far as usability?
Yeah, the applications, both DoorDash and Uber Eats, very easy to just pick up, plug in your information, and get on the road. And like we talk about on this channel, it's very flexible. So the main thing is if it's a half an hour or an hour, you can get out there and start getting to your goals.
Now driving, here's something interesting. DoorDash, there's two options. There's scheduling shifts and you can use the Dash Now feature. Is there scheduling there's no scheduling in Uber Eats. I mean, if Uber Eats, it may be good just to capitalize on immediate demand. If you see your market is super busy, if you see that boost, pricing or Quest, I mean, there's just a go online button basically on Uber Eats, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. So again, that popularity, that boost option, that's the multiplier on your base pay. So if you see that thing is really high, so if it's a 1.5 or a 1.9, then you can instantly go online with Uber Eats.
And you don't have to be in any certain zone of your market. You can be basically anywhere. Versus, DoorDash has these different quadrants. You can go online anywhere at any time, basically, on Uber Eats, right?
Yeah, the really short answer is no matter where you are, no matter what incentives are going on, you can get out there and just make money. You can make that base pay. And then as you get familiar, you can get really strategic with it and then start choosing maybe the times of day that are really popular, like dinner time, that lunch rush. Weekends are typically popular. But if you're just getting started, then it's flexible. You can just immediately go online if you want.
So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk about maybe some of the challenges, maybe some negatives about driving for Uber Eats. In fact, in this video, is Uber Eats a good job? So talk to me about maybe the other side of the coin. What delays are there, with, again, Uber Eats specifically, any problems in those 500 plus deliveries?
So some of the main challenges on these applications are sometimes the wait times. So if you're getting out there, which is definitely a good first step, and you're getting out there during the busy times, so dinner time, lunch rush, sometimes these restaurants might be backed up. So I know I have an example where I was at a Chipotle yesterday and their computers were down. So here I was, 15 people, we were all waiting for these orders and they weren't correctly getting their online orders and their DoorDash orders. So you have to know when enough is enough and you've been waiting for 10-15 minutes and it might be time to move on to the next order, which you can do. But also some challenges, and I would not say these are deal breakers, but you're not always going to get a request after request after request. You have to be a little bit patient. But again, that's where those strategies that we talk about, being around those centers of restaurants and colleges, because those areas, maybe hotels, they're going to have a lot of deliveries happening, maybe a lot of visitors. So there's some really good tips to get over those challenges, but those are some things that you would see.
And here's another pro tip is, you mentioned wait times. Wait times are absolutely a problem on any food delivery app. Doesn't matter which one, you're going to have wait times. Is you can cancel a certain amount of deliveries. Canceling is after you've accepted it and for whatever reason you can't complete the delivery. Like, let's say there's a long wait time in the restaurant. I've always said, 10 minutes, it's kind of testing you a little bit. If it gets to be 15 or longer, that may be one of the orders that, yes, unfortunately, you might want to just cancel that order, especially if you're in those busy zones like you mentioned. You're going to get another order anyway.
Right, exactly. So that's a really smart thing to do, guys. So again, if you're waiting, like Mike said, for 10 minutes or more, then it's probably time to move on to the next one. But don't make it a habit, because those are some things that, especially DoorDash, they measure your completion rate. When you accept an order, there's a really best practice. You want to complete most of the orders that you accept, right? However, it is definitely not frowned upon, and it's absolutely okay to occasionally cancel the orders maybe you have an emergency. Again, maybe the wait times are extremely long, and that's okay. You're allowed to do that. Make sure to look out for yourself if you do need to happen to cancel an order from time to time.
So verdict, is Uber Eats a good job? Now, we'll specifically talk about part-time. I know, some of us are doing this part-time, some are doing this full-time, but since you're doing this part-time driving, let's focus on that. So let's hear a verdict. What do you think? Is Uber Eats a good job?
So the short answer, no matter if it's Uber Eats or DoorDash in this video, is Uber Eats worth it? Short answer is absolutely yes. And here's why. Think about, there's a few positions out there on a part-time basis, on work your own schedule, be your own boss, that I've had it where I made $30+ an hour working whenever I wanted to. And this helps me reach my personal goal, whatever it happens to be. So again, I think it's absolutely totally flexible and it's totally worth it.
Well, I kind of agree with that. Now, of course, there's no earnings guarantee. We can't guarantee you're going to earn $30, but the best practices here on the channel that you and I have talked about in other videos here. So in fact, make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, but they will help you earn as much money possible and lowering your expenses, which is of course another very important other side of the coin. Well, I think that's smart, and it's a good option to have a side hustle, following the best practices that we talk about here on the channel, making as much money as possible, reducing your expenses, and we didn't mention setting some money aside for taxes because this is gross revenue. I would agree with that. I think it's a good job in that sense, especially as a side hustle. And then like you mentioned, like we talked about, you can even add the other apps. So now you're really doubling down with how many earnings options you have.
So actually, to add to that point, think about it. You're not even having just one side hustle. You're having multiple chances to make that high dollar per hour, and it's all within that same time frame. If you're out there for an hour, now you have 2-3 chances to make that really high dollar per hour, which is obviously the goal to help you reach your goals.
So if you got value in this video, definitely drop us a like. You can also click or tap the screen here for our most recent video, and I'll see you in the next one.